You need to start adopting the strategy, someone who's habituated to tinnitus, knowing their tinnitus can't harm them. Carl, your tinnitus can't harm you. Like all the negative emotions and difficulties that lie in the past, they are in the past. They're not coming back. And even if they did come back, they will come back 90% reduced, and you will have the right strategies and tools to deal with them as they come up. So you can free yourself of this emotional pain. You can first of all say, hey, how can I start to understand where my path is coming from? Why am I having this emotional pain? Right? Why am I experiencing in this kind of way? And then say, well, okay, that was a very valid response in the past. It was a super valid thing for me to respond like this in the past because my brain thought this was a relevant and good way to cope with it. But I now know that it keeps me stuck in a loop, and it's based on old thought patterns that inspire certain emotions that sometimes get stuck. Yeah, hi and welcome back here on my channel. And you just watched Carl and me in the middle of our tinnitus coaching session. This is a new format that I have here on my Tinnitus Relief channel. My name is Frieder. I was born deaf on my left ear. I have a hearing aid and a severe tinnitus for 15 years. And on this channel and in my business, I coach people with tinnitus, help them to habituate to tinnitus. I've helped 500 plus people do just that. And in this new format here, I give free coaching sessions in exchange for the ability to share it with the world and share everything that I've learned over the past 5 years as a tinnitus coach. And in today's session, I talk about tinnitus and his tinnitus journey with Carl. Carl is a member of our online tinnitus habituation program at mytinnitus.club. We've also worked together in multiple coaching sessions already, and tinnitus has reached Carl over a year ago, and he talks about the way he struggled with sleep, how he used to mask his tinnitus all the time for sleeping, but how he got to better sleep using some tools and strategies that we shared with him, and how we help him to get towards the process of habituating to his tinnitus. If you want to be coached by me to get help and support for your tinnitus and don't mind this being shared on YouTube so other people also can benefit from it, then there's a link in the description where you can book one of those calls or where you can apply to be featured on this channel to get a free tinnitus coaching session. And you can find, of course, also further links to my online tinnitus program, to my habituation program, as well as some useful things that you can do to start getting better with your tinnitus. But for now, enjoy the interview with Carl, or the coaching session I did with Carl. And if you need anything else, click the link in the description. And thank you for being here. It's very, very valid and valuable to me that you're watching this and that so many people are talking to us, telling us how much they enjoy the content that we share on this channel. So if you do enjoy it, then please like and subscribe, because it helps the channel grow and help more people to get habituated to their tinnitus. Enjoy. All right, so welcome back everyone to this new format in 2024 here on my YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by Carl. Carl is a valued member of our tinnitus habituation program of the mytinnitus.club community. And in today's call, I'm going to be talking to Carl. Carl's going to be sharing a little bit of his story with tinnitus, and hopefully we can make this very useful and beneficial, not only for Carl, but for all of you guys out there. Yeah, Carl, why don't you briefly introduce yourself to our audience, to the people who are listening, maybe share a little bit about your story with tinnitus, and then we can get into some coaching advice.
Okay, I'm Carl. I live in Nova Scotia in Canada and started having tinnitus sensations in I think September, October of 2022. So been over 1 year since I've been experiencing it now, and it's gradually been getting a little bit better, but I'm hoping to get all the way there eventually this year if possible. But there's no timeline really, just whenever it happens, it happens.
I loved what Petra said. Petra said she's another community member of the habituation program. She said the year 2024 is the year of habituation. So a little bit like the Chinese year, the year of the dragon, or the year of the rabbit, or something like that. And we said 2024 is the year of habituation. So let's hope that it not only applies to you, but to many other people. And
I hope so.
And Carl, could you share a little bit about what you were most struggling with in relationship to your tinnitus since you started dealing and experiencing tinnitus? What were like some of the most difficult things for you?
The most difficult things at the beginning were just since it was new, just being overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah.
And recently, it's been interfering a little bit with sleep, but not too bad. I've learned to sleep with it over the course of a few months. I've learned to sleep without sound enrichment, which is a big step, I think.
Yeah. All right. So you were talking about that sleep was a little bit difficult, but throughout the last couple of months, you've learned to sleep without having to use a massive amount of maskers. And could you speak to where you currently find yourself in the journey? If you say, okay, we do have this coaching session today as well. What would be one of the outcomes that would be defined for you as the next steps? And we talked about this yesterday in the group call. If you don't have that, then let's make use of this session in order to establish that, right? So what would be the next steps for you? If you say, okay, sleep has gotten a little bit better, you've got a little bit more control, although controlling sleep is exactly the wrong way. We've talked about that before. But what looks to be the next step for you? Like what do you think is the next step on your journey?
I'm trying to improve upon my acceptance of the noise. When it goes up in intensity,
Yeah.
I find it sometimes hard to accept.
Yeah. And I think maybe we need to take 10 seconds to explain acceptance to people and why you want to get to accepting it. It's very important because the brain connects tinnitus very obviously and very naturally because of everything that we've experienced, sleep loss, constant anxiety, anger, sadness. ENT says there's nothing we can do. Online community says it's terrible. So that's why the brain connects it with danger. Acceptance is the complete opposite of danger, and therefore your brain starts learning that the tinnitus stimulus is something non-dangerous. That's why Carl just shared that he wants to get to the next stage in accepting his tinnitus. Now, accepting doesn't have to be positive, can simply be neutral. You said it in the club a couple of days ago, I'm definitely not going to be friends with it, and we don't want you to be friends with it.
No.
But it's important that you get to a stage of neutral acceptance where tinnitus can turn into an innocent bystander rather than someone that your brain and your conscious system always have to comment on, right? So that you don't walk the earth every day, constantly commenting on the existence and perception of your tinnitus, because that keeps you in this constant reactive loop. So if you say acceptance, and I think that's important to establish, is like, okay, what levels of acceptance have you reached? And where do you think are the next levels? Because I remember that when you're distracted, and it's always easier to be distracted on holidays, etc., it's much easier to accept it for what it is. So how can we get you onto the next level? Where are you right now? Where do you think you define yourself in right now in that journey of teaching your brain that tinnitus is safe to experience? And what are the obstacles that you experience to move on?
Well, like acceptance, like you said, trying to shift my perspective from negative to neutral. I'll never be positive about it. Some people may be, but not me, and that's okay.
I think what people mean is not they're not positive about their tinnitus, but they're more positive about the things they learned about themselves while experiencing tinnitus, right? So
Yeah.
if we say you could accept negative emotions much easier without getting stuck too much in them and then becoming depressed because of those emotions, right? About these repetitive states, then it's much easier to apply that onto other things, other emotions, other things that happen in our life as well. And when people say they've become to make friends with it or think that it even has helped them in certain aspects, then I think it's not directly related to the tinnitus sound. It's more related to everything they've learned about themselves and the wisdom they've acquired about how their own emotional reactions work with regards to things that have been difficult in their life. So I think that's something that comes later. You're barely a year in, right? So some people take longer. So I loved what you said at the start. It's going to take however long it's going to take. But that's something that you sort of like, that's one of the things that you need to tell yourself on a difficult day, right? That's one of the
Yeah.
things that you need to be more aware of on the difficult days. So I think there's a few things that you need to try to do and to be consciously aware of when you're having a difficult day. And one of them is that patience is the trick here, and that constant habit creation is the other trick, right? Constantly creating a habit which furthers acceptance of whatever perception of tinnitus is there, in order to start signaling your brain over time that experiencing this is fine and that we don't constantly need to revolt against it. So let's get into that a little bit deeper. How could that look like for you? What do you think?
Yeah, patience is not one of my strong points, unfortunately, but that's something I need to improve upon. The problem is you have some good periods, or we'll say good, but periods of lower awareness and periods of more awareness. And when you get the high awareness periods, I have like a certain, seems like I have a certain threshold. When it goes over this line, I start to get more and more anxious about it. But when it goes below this line, I'm not. I'm trying to smooth that out, but
Yeah.
I'm not. I guess you just have to, work your way through it. I don't think there's any way to change it.
The thing is, if you know that you have a pattern and the pattern goes up and down, then you also know that when the pattern goes up, it's also going to come down again. So two questions I have here. The first question is, it's probably a repetitive pattern. So have you known and have you established that when it goes down, most likely it will always goes up, it most likely will also go back down? And the second question I have is, if you do know that, then how could you change the outlook when you experience these things to remove yourself a little bit more from this emotional reaction? Or, and this is okay, a third question maybe, is the intensity the same and your anxiety is different, or is the tinnitus intensity and anxiety higher because of your perception or things that happen? What's your take on this?
I think the anxiety and intensity are higher because you focus on it more. I'm not sure that the tinnitus itself actually goes up or down that much.
Yeah.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but the more you think about it, the worse it seems to get.
100%. So, like, you need to know that you're the one in the conductor seat. You're the guy sitting in the conductor seat in the train and learning techniques for you to be in your middle and to respond to the perception of tinnitus with saying, like, well, I'm in the conductor seat. If I let myself run away with emotions and become anxious about this, it's okay to be anxious about this, but it's also okay to fade out anxiety after a couple of minutes or hours and then say, all right, I'm good again. I'm okay. This is not this is not a state that lasts and then continues to be like this forever. This is a dynamic state, right? This is a state that changes all the time. Like, sometimes my perception is higher, then my anxiety is higher, and then maybe very quickly, if I move through that, it gets lower again, and then I'm better again. So this is one of the most important things that you need to realize. Like, and I told you this yesterday in the coaching call, and this, I think, is something that you really should sit down and take some time to write down, is like, you go back to the roots of when the anxiety is higher, why is it higher? And then conquer those thoughts. Because the anxiety is higher because you think, oh, what if it doesn't let me sleep again? And your anxiety is like, what if I will feel this bad again, right? Relating to your first past experiences with tinnitus. And when you know that those are only thoughts that are responsible for these emotions then happening, then you can start to separate yourself from them. So you can be like, okay, well, I know why I'm being this anxious now that I perceive it more, but I know that that's not based on reality. That's based on past experiences, but they're past, they're gone.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that they will ever return.
No.
And if they do return, then it's all about how you manage and respond to them. You know this with sleep already. We talked about this. We love Dr. Guy Meadows' sleep book. And when poor sleep returns, it's about how we respond to poor sleep that determines how quickly we get out of poor sleep again, right? And
Yes.
it's the same thing with tinnitus.
Somebody said to me, when you have these what if thoughts, like what if you don't sleep, or what if something, just flip it around and say, well, what if I do? Turn it upside down.
Yeah.
What if I do sleep?
Yeah. Well,
Doesn't
then
mean,
fine. Then you don't complain. And if you
no.
don't sleep, you don't complain either, because everything's going to be okay. Nothing happens.
And I know this works because just the other day I was having a rough time and I sat down and I read something and it was about sleep and everything just shifted and anxiety went down and tinnitus went down and I went to bed and slept well that night.
Yeah.
So I know it does work.
Yeah. So it's most important to know that the biggest trouble with sleep or tinnitus is the anxiety-induced response of our body, right? The cortisol adrenaline reaction that drains our energy. So even if we only sleep a few hours, but we don't care about only having slept a few hours, and we feel fine most of the time because our body naturally just changes the sleep cycles a little bit in the next night, right? So
Yeah.
most of the time, people who don't care about sleep, if they only sleep for 4 hours or something because they are anxious about something, or only 3, but they get up and say like, well, naturally I couldn't sleep well, and that doesn't cause them anxiety, and it's just like, it's just the way it is, they
Hmm.
will feel probably 80 to 90% better, and know naturally next night sleep will be better, right?
Yeah.
So this is the same thing with tinnitus. You need to start adopting the strategy, someone who is habituated to tinnitus, knowing their tinnitus can't harm them. Carl, your tinnitus can't harm you. Like all
Oh,
the negative emotions and difficulties that lie in the past, they are in the past. They're not coming back. And even if they did come back, they will come back 90% reduced, and you will have the right strategies and tools to deal with them as they come up. So you can free yourself of this emotional pain. You can first of all say, hey, how can I start to understand where my path is coming from? Why am I having this emotional pain? Right? Why am I experiencing in this kind of way? And then say, well, okay, that was a very valid response in the past. It was a super valid thing for me to respond like this in the past because my brain thought this was a relevant and good way to cope with it. But I now know that it keeps me stuck in a loop, and it's based on old thought patterns that inspire certain emotions that sometimes get stuck. But all I need to do is I need to be aware of this and then start to transform it and build a habit where I can accept those. And acceptance, again, is not positive. It's not like, oh, yeah, hey, great. I love you. It's awesome you're there. That's not acceptance. Acceptance is like, right, I'm a strong guy, man. I'm the warrior. I'm a warrior. I'm here. I'm going through this. It's all good. I've got this because I know I got this. And to
yeah.
stand strong like a tree in the storm.
And I do know that. Like my conscious brain knows that. My subconscious brain doesn't know that yet, but it will figure it out.
Yes, through repetitive habits, right? Through repetitive habits of exactly what you were saying yesterday, where you read something and you put yourself into the position that sleep was no longer an issue. So then you slept well. And you can do the same, but as a repeated habit. And that's why we have the 30-day challenge inside the club, inside the habituation program. Because I want to teach you guys strategies that you can incorporate on a daily level so that you have this anxiety relief and the brain starts to stop making this association with tinnitus.
Yeah.
So again, the big money is in here, Carl. What is the biggest thing that still makes you anxious about your tinnitus? You don't have to say it now if you don't know it, but be very aware of what is the biggest thing that still makes you anxious in relationship with your tinnitus. Getting louder, not sleeping, feeling depressed, whatever it is, that's what you need to free yourself from. And you need to be okay with experiencing that, and at the same time create space for yourself to start learning that that is a thought, but not the truth. Whether you identify with it is all up to you. But when you condition yourself to have habit release and anxiety release, then your body starts knowing, well, the reality is I don't need to be anxious about this. And therefore, my brain doesn't need to react to tinnitus like this. Therefore, my tinnitus is most likely lower because you told me that your intensity is lowered when you're not as anxious.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I guess my biggest fear about it, what if it does get louder and what if one time it stays that way?
Yeah, very, very common one. Um, but you have it all the time. It does get louder and then it stops being loud. So
Right.
what you have
So
to
far.
well, yes. Well, but Carl, um, you know me, you know my story. I
Yeah.
don't hear anything on this ear. Yeah, nothing. And this ear, I have the hearing aids and my tinnitus is loud. So I also have a valid reason to say every day, what if it gets louder? Well, for me, the final solution is I go and get my hearing aid tailored more so I can hear more. But tinnitus at whatever intensity doesn't have to bother you. That's the next element, the next step. Once you've habituated to tinnitus and you're doing it, you can bring that element to any other tinnitus level. And if it does get louder, you get a hearing aid and then you hear better and then your tinnitus is less intrusive. And if the
Mhm.
hearing aid doesn't work anymore, you get a cochlear implant and then you hear
Right.
with a cochlear implant. And that's proven to reduce tinnitus in 70 to 80% of the cases when there's an indication for a cochlear implant. So you literally, in the same vein that you can say to yourself, this is a thought of the past, it's not serving me anymore, you can say, so what if tinnitus gets louder? There will be a strategy that will help me in that moment. I don't have to think about that all the time. I say it many times to people. There are so many things that we can choose to be anxious about every single day. And tinnitus is getting, unfortunately, way too much credit from all of us. And that's okay, because unfortunately, our brain is hardwired to work in this way, right? So therefore, that's why we created this coaching program and this training program to start having your brain unlearn this thing. And unfortunately, most people just want some kind of quick fix or relief, or spending just the thousands in hearing aid maskers and then thinking, okay, within a couple of months, I won't have this problem anymore. Unfortunately, that's no guarantee either.
No.
So really having a strategy to recondition yourself is doing the work on a regular basis, showing up, and in the same way, then like you can do EMS training, but I certainly think like this electrode, like these things that electrocute your muscles to make them stronger. But I think there's something psychologically freeing about going out there and doing sports yourself and like building up yourself and getting stronger yourself rather than having people put electrodes on your body
Yeah.
that contract your muscles like this and then you get stronger. It's
Yeah.
not the same result.
No.
Your body might look stronger, you might feel stronger, but it's not the same thing as getting out there, getting over your own barriers and building a habit that makes you feel better, right?
I know people, well, most coaches say that habituation is not dependent on the loudness of the tinnitus or the intensity of it, but I just struggle to understand how that could be for some who have it really, some people have it really loud, or some people
Yeah.
don't, but
Yeah. Look, some people have it very loud, some people have it very mild. And I told you this already, every single client that I've had so far had the loudest tinnitus.
yeah.
Even the people to me who said it's relatively mild. It's because it's connected to your anxiety levels. It's because the perceived annoyance and fear and despair you experience in relationship to your tinnitus is not based on the loudness of your tinnitus. It's mostly based on the way you have started to react to tinnitus and how much anxiety you experience. Some people are more anxious people. Some people are in a difficult phase in their life where they get more anxious than they would have 2 years ago. And
Mm.
then that's okay. That's just the way you are right now in this moment. Don't try to make it stop. This is a part of you. Only when you start saying like, this is me, this is who I am, then you can accept that. Like we all like, unfortunately, this Instagram mentality, beautiful people living on amazing beaches, always happy, is the one thing. And the second thing is after they make their Instagram reel, they go to the toilet and vomit out their breakfast because they think it's going to make look them fat.
Yeah.
So this is what life is. Your life is your life. And it's no one else's life. And you deal with the things that you have to deal with. Everyone else deals with their shit. And we are not entitled to anything in particular. And tinnitus does what it does, but we can learn the strategies and the tools in order to get ahead, build habits that help us get out of this habitual loop. And Carl, the thing is like, I can't get my head around whether it will get louder or whether I can overcome this anxiety. You will only overcome this anxiety once you say, I can free myself of this thought. If I can learn to stand in the middle of my anxiety, then I can learn to be free of the anxiety of thinking, what if it gets louder? Because I have the right approach to say, well, so what if? Even if it does, I mean, you have our community. I'm not going anywhere. You will always
No.
be able to come to us and to tell me things that you need. If you think your tinnitus is acting up and you need some more advice and you need some support here or there, you know where to go and you'll be fine.
I just have to get rid of the, once the fear of it goes away, I think think then you're on the downhill side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember that fear dissolves. Fear as an anxiety reaction by the amygdala, so the fear and panic bias part of the brain, goes down when you symbolize the body that the fear is down. And there is a few ways to do this. It's like getting out of your body, doing sports, moving your body. That's one way, right? And the other one is to allow fear and to be present at the same time, focusing on the wedding band, focusing on the 3 colors that I always use. Because your body can't be afraid of a lion jumping at you, killing you, biting your neck, at the same time of feeling what the socks feel like on your feet. It's impossible.
Right. Yeah.
It's the antidote to the fear reaction. So that's why mindfulness is such a useful tool also for tinnitus.
Yes, it is very useful, I think, and I've been falling out of practice a little bit, but I'm trying to be more consistent with that.
Yeah. Again, I think it's only about, and we talked about this in the session yesterday, how to moderate also the ACT key. Some people here will watch this and they won't know what the ACT key is. It's inside our habituation program, a cool tool to diffuse your thoughts and anxiety about your tinnitus. But I would say, Carl, you just haven't found the one strategy that's like, chuck, opens the thing, opens the valve, and then, you know, sort of like it gets you into that flow. So continue. And I think the starting point has to be write down all your biggest fears.
Yeah.
And then write down pros and cons. Why could they be true? Why couldn't they be true? And then know that compromise, and you are somewhere in the middle. But like no way of knowing what the future brings. No way of knowing that. The only thing that you have is this moment. And whether you make this moment your friend or your enemy in your response to tinnitus will determine how quickly you will habituate to your tinnitus.
Right. Yeah, I realize that, but knowing it and putting it into practice is 2 different things.
Yeah. So I want you to make this exercise. I want you to do this exercise. I want you to write down your fears and the thoughts and feelings that come with it. Write it down. Block yourself an hour. Tell your family you're not available right now. Close the room. Take a piece of fresh paper. Buy a nice pen that's going to be nice for writing, because you're going to be enjoying writing. And then you just sit down, just you and yourself. And you feel so much more in control of writing these things out and knowing what are my biggest fears still? Why do I react in that way? How do I feel the reaction? How does this instill my thought process? And what could my ACT key look like in these various situations? And how can I practice it? So how can I interrupt my behavioral pattern that comes up over and over and over again and keeps me stuck in the same loop? And if you practice that, what you found out to having a different ACT key in different moments, and you practice that consistently, I promise you in 30 days, you'll be somewhere else. 100%.
Yeah, I'll try that this afternoon. I got lots of time.
All right. And if you want to, in 4 weeks, we can do the same format again, and we can talk about the progress that you've made and hear how you've been able to progress. Then I want to say a big thank you. I just wanted to say that if you think the program is helpful, then of course, in your own words, you can tell people a little bit about the club as well.
Yeah, I think everybody should consider joining, because there's lots of good information. There's tons of support there, and Frieder knows what he's talking about, so he can definitely help you out. So sign up anytime. All
right, awesome. All right, Carl. Thanks very much, and we'll see you back here on the show in future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.